Hello everyone, this day I'll be discuss about the pattern and reasons. Grammar is uniformly meaningful, and the meaning of grammatical forms responsible for the pattern those forms that are observed in usage. The second language teacher will be benefit from knowing not just the pattern of the forms, but the meaning of the forms that are responsible for the pattern. In this way, the teacher can guide the learner in making choice that is delicious whether it contributes in any given case to more frequent or less frequent pattern. It's look backward summarizing a corpus rather than motivating production words. Such limited knowledge semantical labels error into production, rather than providing guidance for a choice. Knowledge patterns alone in effect precludes choice by implicitly prescribing across the board the more frequent combination of forms even when these are communicatively inappropriate. By contrast, analytical knowledge of the meaning of the forms can consistently inform choice in which form to use, regardless in how frequent given combination may be. More linguistic research is needed to identify exactly what the grammatical forms are, what they mean. Importance of patterns. Patterns can be understood as they can sentences are usually structured. It's important to learn to the most common sentence pattern in English as most of the sentence you will hear, write, and speak. While follow the basic patterns, the most basic sentence patterns is noun followed by verb. Within a pedagogical approach in which attention is paid to grammatical form, as a contributor to communication, teachers need to know not only patterns of usage, which combination of forms are frequent and which are infrequent, but also what grammatical means, signed by what grammatical forms are responsible for those patterns. A teacher knowledge usage based tendency, which when extremely strong been called rules, can be helpful but uniform by not causes behind it the effects, such as knowledge remains merely descriptive, not explanatory.
Fossilization. Fossilization refers to the process in which incorrect language becomes a habit and cannot easily be corrected. Errors in general take time to correct, but a fossilized error may never be corrected unless the learner sees a reason to do so. Teachers can help learners notice their fossilized errors by, for example, recording them speaking or by asking them to keep a record of what written words as a part of language portfolio. So there are two classification of fossilization, and these are individual fossilization and group fossilization. Usually, individual fossilization consists of two types, and these are error reappearance and language competence fossilization. So first, error reappearance refers to the inappropriate language structures that are thought to have been corrected but continue to appear regularly. Language competence fossilization refers to the plateau in the development of second language learners' phonological, grammatical, lexical, and pragmatic competence. Group fossilization are repeated errors that are often two demonstrations of competence fossilization. If fossilized language competence become more pervasive in a community, group fossilization comes into being. Such pervasion often leads to a new dialect.
What is structuralism grammar? Structural grammar is means of analyzing written and spoken language. It is concerned with how elements of a sentence, such as morphemes, phonemes, phrases, clauses, and parts of speech are put together. Under this form of linguistic analysis, it is how these elements work together that is most important, as the relationships between the elements typically have a greater meaning than any of the single element. The study of this method, therefore, is an important tool for improving clarity in communication. In history, structural grammar is concerned with how elements of a sentence are put together. The study of the selection and arrangement of sentence elements is relatively new in comparison to other language study. It developed in the early 20th century, particularly from 1930 to 1950. Linguists generally consider Ferdinand de Saussure to be the father of the analysis. He believed that the individual units within spoken and written communication were largely arbitrary, such as the same item having many different titles under different languages. His concept, therefore, was the best way to study language was to look at its systematic structure, which was really the link between thought and sound. In K principles, structural grammar may be taught in an English as an second language course. Structural grammar operates under the assumption that what is seen on the surface is also the straightforward meaning behind the words of a sentence. Everything is accepted literally and the face of a value, and no attempt to identify implied meaning is made. The fact that the choice and arrangement of a sentence elements creates absolute meaning makes structural grammar a foundation for being understood. Once a person have an absolute meaning, he can look beyond in the implied meaning if desired. Experts accept that the way to change what is communicated is to alter the elements and the arrangement in the sentence. They stress the proper sentence structure, make it possible to communicate without confusion, and to conform to community norms. In this sense, structural grammar can be seen as a major tool for bringing and holding people together. For the acquisition, people began to learn how to choose and arrange sentence elements extremely early in their life. As babies, people learn how to make the basic sounds of their language, which enables them to express rudimentary needs and wants. This expands into entire words, and finally, children master the basics of sentence construction and learn how to use specific words in particular fashion. The more sounds and words a child learns, and the better he gets at putting them together, the more complex ideas he can convey. For the applications, some language professional looks at how sentences are put together in linguistic research, as they can garner some clues about how a person is learning a language according to the sound and arrangements he selects. This type of research provide vital information on what a person can and cannot understand at different age levels. It can alter how an individual communicates based on his audience and has a strong link to both education and marketing. Teachers also use structural grammar in language and composition classes. In the past, educator taught people how to improve sentences and communication through techniques such as sentence diagramming. Academic professionals still enjoy this method. The train, however, it is for teachers to combine structural and transformational grammar and to teach language with other techniques such as having students rephrase given sentences. In comparison, people some often confuse of the study sentence elements and arrangement with the transitional and transformational grammar. For the example, so here is the example of the structuralism grammar. Number one is an apple is an apple is crisp, sweet, juicy, round, and hard. It is an example of a word that given by a different meaning, a different definition that looks for the other view. Another example of structuralism is describing your experience at the ocean by saying, it is windy, salty, and cold, but rejuvenating. Structuralism grammar can be part of the sentences, such as subject, predicate, object, indirect object, or complement. Every word in a sentence serves as a specific purpose within the structure of what particular sentence. According to the rules of grammar, sentence structure can sometimes be quite complicated. Transformational grammar, also called as transformational generative grammar, a system of language analysis that recognizes the relationship among the various elements of a sentence and among the possible sentence of a language and uses processes or rules to experimentation or generative grammar, a system of language analysis that recognizes the relationship among the various elements of a sentence and among the possible sentence of the language and uses processes or rules to express this relationship. For example, transformational grammar relates the active sentence. Like number 1, John read the book. With its corresponding passive, the book was read by John. Another one is the statement George saw Mary is related to the corresponding question whom or who did George see and who saw Mary. Although set as this active and passive sentence appear to be very different on the surface, a transformational grammar tries to show that in the underlying structure, in the deeper relation to one another, the sentences are very familiar. Transformational grammar assigned a deep structure and a surface structure to show the relationship of such sentence. Thus, I know a man who flies planes can be considered the surface form of a deep structure approximately like I know a man, the man flies airplanes. The notion of deep structure can be especially helpful in explaining ambiguous utterance. Flying airplanes can be dangerous, may have a deep structure or meaning like airplanes can be dangerous when they fly, or to fly airplanes can be dangerous. Just like that, it's like a reverse definition or exploration of meanings. A system of linguistic analysis consisting of a set of rules that generates basic syntactic structure in the form of simple independent clauses and a set of transformational rules that operates on the structure so as to produce question, complex sentences, or etc. These involve presenting a native speaker with series of sentences and having them decide whether a sentence are grammatical or acceptable or ungrammatical or unacceptable. For example, the man is happy. Happy is the what? Man. Transformational actually come in two types. The post-deep structure kind mentioned above, which are the string or structure changing, and the general transformation were originally proposed in earliest form of generative grammar.